Welcome to the Get Your Pink Back Project. I'm your host, Dr. Christelle Oliver Dussault, and this is your space to pause, breathe, and return to yourself. One story, one insight, one conversation at a time. Let's begin. Welcome back to the Get Your Pink Back Project podcast. I have Jaime with me here today. She is a woman who wears many, many hats. She is an entrepreneur, a hormone specialist who does some coaching. She's also a palliative care nurse. She is a wife and she is a mother of two wonderful children. But we're not here to talk about those roles. We're here to talk about her, about Jaime. So welcome. Thank you for making the time to be here with me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited. This will be fun.
Yeah. So before we dive into your journey into motherhood, I think it'd be really useful to maybe share who Jaime was before Jaime was a mum and had all these hats that she now wears.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like a lifetime ago and like a whole separate entity. But I was definitely someone who, and I think this will probably play into the conversation we're gonna have. I was very organized. I was slightly type A, very driven and motivated in all the things. I love being into just creating as much as I can, whether, I was in nursing school and then decided to get into fitness training
Mhm.
and competing even. And I was somebody who, always wanted to be learning something new. And when I became a mom, that kind of all kind of
Changed quite
halted
quickly.
drastically.
Did you have any expectations of motherhood before stepping into it?
Oh, I think that that it was going to be a lot easier, that it was
Yeah.
going to be it was going to be something that was a little bit more magical. And I mean, it's magical in a different way, but definitely not kind of like what I anticipated. I don't think I anticipated how dark it can get and lonely. And I think that's a huge disservice that we do as women who are mothers to other mothers, is not maybe share exactly um, what that looks like. No one told me that breastfeeding was horrifically hard. Like for some people it's easy,
Yeah.
but for majority of us it's really tricky. So yeah, that was kind of a huge adjustment and learning curve for myself. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about those first few months in motherhood. How did you adjust to the change?
Well, I think too, for myself, my husband and I tried to get pregnant for quite a while. I think it was after a year we opted to go into, utilizing fertility treatments. And we started with IUI, so the intrauterine insemination, did 2 rounds of that, didn't work. And then we took a month off because it was Christmas and we were going to be back home and just wasn't around for the timed blood work. And so luckily enough, we got pregnant on that month off. So when you really the mind game of getting pregnant is
Yeah.
is a whole nother story, right? If you don't get pregnant easily. And so when this baby is born, it's like everything that you ever wanted. And I remember very clearly coming home from the hospital, and I ended up having an emergency C-section, and came home, and I was sitting on the ground with my back against the couch, and we had our dog next to
Mhm.
me and Jordan sitting on the couch, and I had this baby. I don't even know where Layla was at the time. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what have we done? It was just this uh-oh, what do
Mhm.
I do with this baby now? And it only lasted this feeling only lasted a few minutes, but it was looking at the dog and Jordan and I, and it was just the three of us for so long. And then all of a sudden we have this baby, and I have no idea what to do with this. And, even though I'm a nurse and very well prepared in majority of my life, prepping for motherhood, I didn't spend a lot of time there. I truly was just oh, I'll figure it out when I get there. like I'll figure it out. I'll have this motherly instinct that
Yeah.
will kick in. And, it didn't really kick in. So I felt really unprepared.
I
And I
think
was
it's
like,
something that's learned. I
yeah,
know
which is,
there's a narrative that the motherly instinct kicks in as to a certain degree, yeah, we will have insight, but it is something that you can't prepare for, and you kinda learn on the go, as scary
yeah.
and
And
daunting as it is for someone who likes to prepare.
yeah. And I honestly, I guess what I thought is that like that instinct that they called it was just going to be stronger, more clear.
Mhm.
And that I was like, okay, I'm just going to know what to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And I didn't struggle for the first couple months with like mood or anything like that. It was a tricky time because at 6 weeks postpartum, my dad went into hospice. And I wasn't living in the same town. And so that was, I remember my mom came to visit us in the lower mainland. She took the bus. And we got the phone call that dad was getting transferred. He had Parkinson's and was getting transferred into hospice. And we literally picked my mom up from the bus stop,
Mhm.
turned around, and drove back to Kamloops in a blizzard. Like and it was dark. And so you can imagine on the Coquihalla,
Yeah, I can picture
my
it.
mom, my mom and I and my husband and this little 6-week-old baby in the back seat. And thank God she just slept the entire time. I couldn't imagine having to pull over and trying to breastfeed her. And I was still learning how to do that or give her a bottle or anything. And I was like, I kind of have this rule where it's like I don't like to travel on that highway like past October 1st till about March 1st. So I was really like not doing okay mentally with that. And so, yeah, it was kind of like a whirlwind.
For those of you who aren't in British Columbia, the Coquihalla Highway is a very dangerous mountainous highway that goes from the west coast into the interior. And there's very changeable weathers, and there are quite a lot of accidents on it. So your
Yes.
fears are validated. And then to add on the fact that, you're a new mother, the changes that happen with that, and then the news of your father going into hospice, it's a lot to process in a very short space of time.
Yeah, it was like a time where it just all felt like a blur. And it was like where you just like I don't even know if you want to call it instinct, but you just like you just do whatever you have to do. There isn't time to
Yeah,
process anything mentally.
you
You're
go into
just literally
survival.
going through the motion. Yeah, we're in survival mode. Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, it was a wild, wild time for the first few months. Yeah.
Yeah. And then did you end up then staying in Kamloops for a little bit as your dad was transferred into palliative care? Or were you between the lower mainland and Kamloops trying to navigate being a new mom and your father whose life was ending?
Yeah. And so just, I mean, I know this to be true because I work in palliative care. He kind of did the typical like jump back, like he kind of
Mhm.
perked up, we like to call it.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon for someone to come into hospice, especially if they're in the hospital first, which is where he came
Mhm.
from, and go into hospice and then kind of have this moment where he perked up. So we ended up going back home. My husband had to go back to work. And so we went home for a few months and then came back at Christmas time. And then he passed just after Christmas. So Layla would have been, yeah, 4 or 5 months old at the
Mm.
time. And so that kind of led to what ended up happening is I was breastfeeding was tough enough for myself as it was. Like I went and
Mhm.
saw a lactation consultant. I took like the domperidone to help with like milk supply, along with like all the supplements such as like fenugreek. And then I think there was another one. And so I was just like, there's this constant like battle of like getting milk. And then when dad passed, that milk supply, like, really plummeted, and I think my capacity to just get that milk supply going and going, like, the work that I was doing to get that going and don't get me wrong, I was topping her up with a formula, a bottle, because I just mentally could not take all of that. But it really,
Yeah.
I saw that milk supply really plummet after dad passed. And I was spending a lot of time with my mom here with her in Kamloops and, getting the funeral plans ready and all the things that need to occur. And Layla spent a lot more time with my husband than with me. So again, getting that stimulation and everything like that. And I didn't pack my pump or anything. I wasn't expecting, like, we were coming home for Christmas just to visit, and then we got the phone call that he passed. And
Yeah.
it was like, although he didn't actively pass in the sense of like where, he became unresponsive and then, the natural death process, he actually ended up falling and then passed away from the fall. So it was still like, although it was expected, it was unexpected, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
maybe a little bit
Yeah.
sooner, a
So
little bit quicker, not the the death that you had imagined.
no, like I kind of envisioned that, the natural death process of, semi-responsive, non-responsive, and then, passing. And so it did have that kind of hit of like, it being, a sudden pass. And and so when that milk supply really kind of shifted, I do believe that that's kind of what led to this uh, severe postpartum depression anxiety. So that happened probably a month or so after dad passed. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, was it the hormones from breastfeeding that were
Mhm.
keeping me kind of like together? Or, you know, just the grief kind of coming in at that time, the hormone shifts that occur, all the
Uh-huh.
things. I think it was probably a combination of it
Yeah,
all that
likely.
kind of like led into this like very debilitating postpartum depression anxiety that it I honestly felt so physically ill. I actually thought that I was pregnant because I just felt physically unwell. I didn't have a lot of like intrusive thoughts or anything like that. I just I just felt sick, and Jordan was out of town at the time, and I luckily enough had some like incredible girlfriends, and I was like, you cannot leave me. Like I'm not well. You need to come and sit with me. And they would come at, some of them would come sit in the morning with me, afternoon, and then evening, until Jordan came home. So I'm really, really, really thankful for that because
That you had your village.
it knocked me out. Yeah.
What did the sickness feel like?
It felt like an alien kinda had taken over my body. Like, I felt like just this foreign presence in me, and, like, I was just, like I just felt so, like, physically sick. Um, I couldn't get out of bed, which is not
Mm,
like me at all.
nope.
Like, I was someone who's a
Mhm.
go-getter,
Yeah,
to be then just, like, very unwell to just just I remember in the morning, like, hearing her cry, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, no, no, not
yeah.
yet." Like, give me a little bit more time, and I was so entranced in this depression that I remember there was a time I would wake up and I would put her in, like, oh, I'm gonna get all choked up about it. But I would put her in the jolly jumper, and then I would put her to the exerciser, and then I would put her on the floor mat with like all the little things above her, and I would just like rotate her
Yeah.
um until Jordan came home, until my husband came home. So that was kind of like how I dealt with it until the antidepressants kicked in. And those were like my saving grace. There's a
What
time and a
was
place
the
for everything. So
Yeah.
I
What
needed
was
those things.
Yeah, they can be really helpful, when you need them. What was the, I suppose, trigger or the moment where you decided to seek help? Was it something that came from you, or was it your partner or a friend who noticed something in you and was concerned, or something else
Well,
altogether?
yeah, well, Jordan was, actually out of town, and he actually was with one of our friends who is a physician.
Mhm.
And, I was calling him being like, "Something's wrong with me, like, I do not feel well, like, something's changed, like, I'm not okay." And so he spoke to his friend, and his friend was like, "Yeah, she sounds like she's really struggling with postpartum depression, anxiety, like, she needs to see a doctor, like, ASAP." So when my husband came home, he's like, "You need to go to the doctor." He was so adamant. He was like, "You're going to
Mm.
the doctor, like, right now."
Right.
And so the next morning I called, and luckily enough, the doctor's office, she got me an appointment that day. And so I think I called at like 9 AM. I think I was there by 11 and saw the doctor. It wasn't the best experience with the doctor. at one point he like, as I was expressing and sharing how I felt, he like looked at his watch and was
Mm.
like, "Oh, okay, I'm cutting into some time here, so I'll just hurry this up." But as a nurse, I was just like, you know what? This is like my first experience of really struggling with something health wise, and it triggered.
Hard being on the other side when you're
It
used to being
is.
caring.
Well, because you see both aspects of it, right? It's just like, the medical system is tricky and it's hard right now. And so, but I just was like, that was like my first feeling of like, I really have to advocate for myself here. Like regardless of how the doctor is like treating me, that doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I know what I need to get. I need an antidepressant. I need something in the meantime. Because I know that antidepressant is going to take a little while to kick in potentially, and I'm not well, so I need something like right now kind of thing. Um,
You were very good to advocate for yourself when you were so vulnerable and really
yeah,
probably felt dismissed by his, like, nonverbal cues and just which may not have been the intention, but when you're in that space and you see that, it feels quite invalidating and like you don't matter, your illness doesn't matter.
exactly. Yeah. And I think like too, I do like, give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if that was his intention. That's how I felt. But then at the same time, it said, regardless of how I felt, like I needed to get what I
Mhm.
needed from him to
Mhm.
get so that I could get better. And so I followed that up too with making like I have a very holistic lens in that
Mhm.
sense where it was just like I know like I wasn't by myself, but I was by myself in the sense that I wasn't in my hometown. I didn't have all my sisters and my brothers. I come from a big family. I didn't have my mom, I didn't have my mother-in-law. And so I had to get better like really quick. Jordan works full time. He has a very strenuous job. He works a lot of overtime. I didn't have an option. I had to look after my daughter, who I barely could get out of bed for.
Mhm.
So I had to get fixed real quick. So I didn't stop just at that medical doctor appointment. I went on to see a naturopath. I did acupuncture, uh, different supplements and herbs. When I saw a grief counselor, I cut alcohol and caffeine. One's a
Mhm.
depressant, one's a stimulant. I looked like I'm doing all the things. Like I'm
Yeah,
just
you're
like
like,
I'm
"Okay,
doing
let's
like
look at this
I did not leave.
systematically. What can I do?"
But when you're that desperate and how you feel is just not yourself and you have a
Mm.
baby to look after, you will do whatever it takes. I did whatever it took to get better, because I need to get better for my family. And I journaled and I read books and I just focused on my mental health, my spiritual health, my physical health, the best that I possibly could. And I think a combination of all the things helped, but I truly think that like once that antidepressant like kicked in, I was like, you know, I could function a bit better, I'll say. Just a
Did
little
you
bit
ever
better.
have a moment where you started to feel like you again, or you had something be like, "Oh, like there she is. There's glimpses of me."
Yeah, it was when getting out of the house wasn't so um overwhelming. So my mom, oh, she's so amazing. So, oh, again, I choked up again. Woo. I'm like right on my cycle. So you hit me at a really good time. But my mom came down and she's like, you got to get out of the house. You need to get, like you need to sign up for the baby and me swimming lessons. You need to go to the library and go to like the Mother Goose thing. Like she was really good at like being like, what are you doing? You're just sitting in this house all day? Like, no, like, let's go. So I think it was when that became easier for me.
Mhm.
Like I still remember showing up to like the little Mother Goose thing activity that they had for moms and babies at the library. And I was like, I couldn't even have a conversation with anybody.
Yeah.
And I think I was just like the meds were kind of kicking in, but like I was still taking the other medication for the times that the anxiety was really, really significant. And I was just, yeah, I could not even formulate a conversation with somebody. So when I started to notice that that was easier, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, we're
We're getting
we're
there.
getting there. There was light at the end of the tunnel for me. So yeah. Yeah, she kicked my butt, my mom. She's just like, "What are you
Yeah.
doing? You can't just sit here all day. Like no one no wonder you feel like this." I'm like, "Yeah, that's a valid point, right?"
Valid
But
point, yeah.
I didn't
But it
have a
goes
lot
to
of
show that
yeah, I just
there's
didn't
a
have a lot
level
of
of
girlfriends at
vulnerability.
the time
Yeah.
too that had
Yeah.
kids that were my age that kind of were just like, pulling me out. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you had multiple griefs you were going through. You had your father's grief, and then you
Yeah.
had your own grief of, the person you were before becoming a mother as well. Um, I know in private conversation you mentioned that you guys got pregnant quite quickly, with your second.
Yeah.
Um, Tell us about maybe throughout, you were doing all the right things, getting back on your feet,
Mhm.
and maybe how you found out, what went through your head. Uh,
Yeah, it's funny, like, again, as a nurse and someone who, knows how to get pregnant, it never
and
really
had struggled to get pregnant.
struggled to get pregnant before. The conversation with Jordan and I was really just like, okay, let's just see what happens, right? Like, we were very open to, just, yeah, let's just see what happens. We have this beautiful baby girl. Obviously, was going through a really, really hard time, but I was starting to feel better.
Mhm.
And so I got pregnant when Layla was 7 months. There were definitely like, there was never, like, the reaction of, like, "Oh, no." It was more of like, "Oh, how did that happen?" Even though you know how it happens, but you're just like,
Definitely.
"Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I thought it was gonna take a lot longer than it did, like, than it was going to, because it took longer with Layla, and you just have this expectation that it's gonna take a long time, when in reality, like, not always the case. So, I remember just the panic, though, of, like, so the doctor, for whatever reason, put me on an antidepressant that wasn't, safe to take while pregnant. And so that was probably my biggest concern, was just like, is this baby gonna be okay, right? And I did find out, like, it wasn't like I was a few months along. I found out, like, at my first missed cycle that I was like, "Oh, wait a second, this my period's taking a lot longer than usual. I'll go and do a test." And then, yeah, I was just like, "Oh, wow, like, I gotta." So I was already kind of connected with my midwives with Layla's, pregnancy and delivery, and so I connected with them again, and so I was advised to just cold turkey the antidepressant, which obviously terrified me because I didn't know what was gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
what I had gone through was so awful that I was just like, I don't know if I have it in me to go through that again. And I think that's
Mhm.
a feeling that we have as humans. Like, I don't know if I can go through this again, but we are so resilient, and we're so resilient as moms. And when we have, another human being to literally care for, it's like you'll do absolutely anything, right? So, like, you find that strength inside of you. And so I just made sure that I had a really good girlfriend who was close by, kind of on speed dial. And I let Jordan know, what the deal was going to be for the days that I was going to be, just like, hey, like, I have to stop this cold turkey. Just expect, like, if I call you in the middle of your workday, if you can answer the phone, that would be
That would help.
appreciated. If you can't,
Yeah.
I understand. But, like, don't ignore my phone call just because, like, you don't feel like talking to me. And so, yeah, it was a rough couple of days. But it was okay. It was okay. Like, I felt pretty crummy,
Mhm.
but for the most part, I was okay. And then, yeah, and then the pregnancy, that was a bit tricky. I was so back to back with my pregnancies. I really had to hustle to get my hours in as for EI as
Yeah.
a nurse, and didn't quite make it. So we went back to work 6 weeks postpartum. Not
Oh,
full,
that's
like
hard.
not full hour, 12-hour shifts, but I was able to pick up, 4 hours here, 6 hours there, and then apply for EI, which, we'll save that whole concept of like EI and mat leave for another
Yeah.
day.
I can relate to
It does
that.
definitely,
Someone who's self-employed.
right?
That
Yes, same,
yeah,
right? And so
yeah.
it's just crazy, the system and all the things. So, yeah.
I think, yeah, we could
Yeah.
probably have a whole podcast or episode on how society supports, mothers who also have careers.
Yes.
Throughout all of that, I want to circle back to your breastfeeding experience. Did you feel pressure, external pressure to breastfeed, or do you feel like that was something more internally driven that was important to you, or a mix of the two?
I think it's a mix of the two. I mean, obviously, I know, that I wanted to breastfeed, but at the same time, it was the same as like my delivery plan. This is okay. So I knew that if I hyper focused on what I wanted an experience to be like, that if it wasn't like that, I was going to be really disappointed, and I didn't want to be disappointed. So I didn't make a birth plan because I was like, it's probably not going to go that way. I don't want to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And I didn't. Both my pregnancies, deliveries, were emergency C-sections. So same with breastfeeding. I just thought it was going to be easy,
Uh-huh.
and I really wanted it to be easy. But Layla was born with a very severe tongue tie, so we had to go and get that lasered. And the recovery of that is really not great for anybody, right? You have to, kind of rub that incision every
Yeah.
time you're going to breastfeed. Well, can you imagine like the work that has to be done just to get them latched, before you even latch them, you're causing them pain, right? It was awful and like such a mind game for me. And so but I think that yes, there's obviously the external pressures, like, from the healthcare team to social media to peers, family pressures to breastfeed. And luckily enough, like my mom didn't breastfeed with me, did breastfeed from with most of her kids. And so she was a really good kind of support system for me. And she's just like, Jane, like if you can't do it, like get a bottle.
Yeah.
Why are we, and she's from
I
that
think
generation. It's like, why are we fussing over this? Just give her a
yeah.
freaking bottle.
There were
She's hungry,
different
right?
there were different pressures. I think we definitely put a lot more pressure on ourselves, to do all the things, and be the perfect mother and do the breastfeeding and have the natural birth. And, sometimes that, we have a different course. So yeah, difficulties getting
Well,
pregnant, traumatic births. Um, did you find it hard to recover, suppose, physically and mentally from the C-sections?
I mean, I wouldn't know any different. Um,
Mhm.
so I didn't struggle much. Like I think that because I was in relatively like good shape and health
Mhm.
wise prior to the C-sections, I think that was a a benefit.
Mhm.
I found it hard, the one thing that I kind of get a chuckle out of is like when they're like, "Hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't lift whatever pounds afterwards." Like, okay, so are you also supplying me with an assistant? Because my husband has to go back to work. Like, I have to get this baby that like after, having Layla and Kai so close. Like once Kai was born, I was having to pick Layla up out of her crib still. Um, trying to wrestle her in when we go out with like the baby. Like it just, I'm surprised I didn't do more damage to myself, but I think that we just have to do what you have to do, right? So I think I was okay. I mean, there's definitely parts of me that wish that I had a natural vaginal birth, just to experience that. Um, and yeah, and, we had like, yeah, both births were just a little bit things kinda went a little bit sideways in both of them. Kai was transported immediately, to Royal Columbian because Ridge Meadows Hospital doesn't have a NICU, and he was 4 weeks early,
Hmm.
and needed some assistance with breathing. So, there was the trauma there of, having this baby on you
And
and
then taken
then
away.
have it taken away and then removed from the building that you're in.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you don't see him for I didn't see him for probably like 6 hours.
Wow.
And so but I do wanna say and also too, my goal with the breastfeeding with Kai is, like, if this boy doesn't latch, if this isn't an easy experience, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not doing
You're
this,
being
right?
kinder to
Like,
yourself. All
I'm
right.
not playing this game, right? Like, if he better latch and it better be, like, or else we're not doing this. And so I pumped, but ultimately, he was in the NICU. He
Hmm.
was, you know, teeny tiny. I was just like, "Give him a bottle." Like, poor guy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not
Yeah.
messing around here. This baby has been through enough. Like, I'm not also then withholding food because I need to breastfeed,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
No, he needs to eat. That's number one priority. Let's get him a bottle of formula. Let's get going, right? And I do want to share that no, I know that, like, I don't know who they are, but, like, how they my mom and I always joke about this, like, "They say you should do this, this, and this." I'm like, "Who"
Mhm.
my mom's like, "Who
Who's
is
they?
they?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know who they are, but they exist and they shove this information in our faces as new moms that brings out a whole 'nother level of anxiety and, stress, but for us for a baby who was torn away from me right away, transferred to another hospital in the NICU, wasn't breastfed, that child is so connected to me. Like
That's wonderful.
nobody loves me like my son. And so I think there's also this like language and this talk about, oh, like the golden hour and you have to do skin to skin and, breastfeeding. That's how your baby is going to connect with you.
Yeah.
No,
There's other ways. Yeah.
and I know that there's research that shows all of that, but I have to say that my son
Oh, yeah.
is very connected to me regardless of all the obstacles we face. So,
But you must
I
have
think
had
it's
that
just
narrative in your head for that to be so important to you now,
and
that
you
it's
hear it from other moms, right? You hear it from other like my girlfriend just had a baby and she's like, "Well, and then we have to do this and we have to do that and all these things like post birth." And I'm like, "So you've seen how Kai is with me, right? Like, just so you know, if that doesn't happen, you're gonna be okay." And I just think that society-wise, new moms are just, oh, the torture that we go through and
there's
from
a
the
lot of pressure.
noise.
Yeah.
There's a lot of noise and it's not helping
Did
us.
you have any emotions in motherhood, or have you had any emotions in motherhood that have surprised you that you wish you would have been prepared for?
Um, I think that just I think it's just like the losing yourself in motherhood, how easy that slippery slope.
Mhm.
That slippery slope because it's not like you just like wake up one day and you're like, "Oh, I lost myself in motherhood." It's like this like perpetual,
Erosion.
roller coaster of, you know, being in the trenches of motherhood and being in that darkness and like looking at your body and like what the hell happened here? Like this is not what
Yeah.
I thought things would look like
Yeah.
postpartum. Um that's rude, but and just like losing who you are and then it's like you're not the same your flavors of your past self combined with
Okay.
like new flavors. And
Mhm.
but you're also learning what those new flavors are and what you like and what you don't like. And so it's rediscovering like when you become a mom, like you are rediscovering who you are. And
Mhm.
and it's you're like you want so badly to have the old you back, but the old you is so much better now, right?
Mhm.
It's an
You've
upgraded
evolved.
yeah, you evolve. And so I think that just understanding like because you don't see it right away. Like when, having, especially when you have two back to back, it's like you're just in survival mode. Like I don't remember, like my mom said to me, she's like, yeah, I came and stayed with you for 2 weeks after Kai was born. I have like no recollection of that. I was like, you did? You were in my house for 2 weeks? We let you stay here for that long. And she's like, yeah, you don't remember? I was like, no, I remember you being there, but I don't remember the timeline. And,
Mhm.
I think too, like the beauty of life, and I really truly think that everything happens for a reason, is that Kai was born just almost a year to the date that we lost dad. And then
Mm.
the fact that I wasn't just solely breastfeeding allowed my mom to have those moments with a newborn baby, breast or bottle feeding him and being able to help. I think that was really healing for her. And I think it was I just think it was just how everything was supposed to happen, just so
How
that
was your
everyone had that healing moment. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with the timing of the anniversary of his passing.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was your mood with Kai second time around? Did you find that it dipped as much, or did you not
No.
was that a completely different experience for you?
Totally different experience, and that's where I feel like, the grief, the breastfeeding probably all played into that, but I did luckily enough, it was on my radar, and luckily enough, I had so many people checking in with me that was just like, "Hey, like, how you doing?" Like, "No, but how are you really doing?" Right? And so, and I'm forever grateful for those friends and the family that did that. But no, luckily enough, I didn't struggle with anything mood wise. I do remember standing in front of the sink washing bottles, and I was like, and I was looking out the window. I was like, is this going to be my life forever? Like just that, right? And you just have these moments that you reflect back on as a new mom that you kind of chuckle at now, like, yeah, no, sweetheart, you're not gonna be washing freaking bottles for years to come. Like there comes a time, I call them mommy milestones, where you
Yeah,
no longer have the bottles, and then you no longer have the diapers, and then you no longer carrying the diaper bag around. Those are mommy milestones. Or we're like now it's like they wake up and they can make their own breakfast. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, mommy
yeah.
milestone, right? So it's, kind of just like just reminding yourself that is motherhood is ever changing. No day looks the same. All the challenges you think you get into like a groove of like, okay, I'm rocking this. And then they just come in with like a whole new scenario. Now it's like how to properly, not properly, well, properly, sure, properly talk to them as, a 6 and
6 and 8,
8-year
yeah,
olds.
they're
Yeah.
little proper humans now in school.
Yeah. 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 It's wild.
Um,
So,
how has motherhood impacted any of your relationships?
mm, I think I think that for myself, what I just became a lot more selective.
Mhm,
Um, but also too, I had a really amazing conversation with one of my best friends, who is a brand new mom. But
mhm.
obviously, she didn't have kids when I had them, and I had spent the night with her, and she was sharing with me. I'm gonna switch your question just a little bit and
Answer it
just
however you
see.
want to.
Well, and just like, but the other side of things, which is really interesting. So she was very honest with me about, she's like, well, you never told me about how you were struggling with breastfeeding. And you never told me about like this and that you were struggling with. And I didn't know that, like, that your postpartum depression anxiety was like this significant, because I was sharing all of this with her because then she had a baby. And so it's interesting when you have the friendship, the ones that have kids, you seem to share a lot more with than the ones who don't. And I don't remember being like, oh, I'm not going to share this with her. She doesn't have kids. She's not going to understand. It's just that I think I really at that time enjoyed having conversations with her that didn't involve me talking about my kids.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it wasn't that I didn't think that she could relate. It's like, I just don't wanna talk about my kids anymore. I wanna hear about what you're doing and your adventures and, like, living through her. She's a very driven, motivated, individual with that nursing is her true passion. And so it was fun to have those conversations because I was just sitting on mat leave for years and years,
Yeah.
right? It felt like
Yeah.
it wasn't that long, but it felt like it.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
you know,
In another world.
yeah, I was, in La La Land big time. And so it was, hearing her perspective of being the friend without kids when I had them, her perspective of our friendship that was like didn't even wasn't even on my radar, to then like her having a baby and then us the conversations that occur at that time. And so I think now I love having a variety. Like, I'm blessed to have some of my closest girlfriends choose
Mhm.
not to have kids,
Yeah.
and I love that I get both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's nice to
it's
have the choice.
it is, and I
Is there
actually want that for Layla too. Like, I want Layla to be surrounded by women who have chosen not to have kids and who have kids so that she doesn't feel that pressure to that she isn't, that society pressure that as women we need to have babies. It's like, well, there's still value when you choose not to be a mother as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. Is there anything else that you'd like to share from your experience that you think may help our listeners, either someone who's in the trenches or who is pregnant and expecting their first baby?
I think that when the biggest benefit to myself when I was going through the postpartum depression anxiety is I just talked. I talked
Mhm.
to anyone who would listen to me about how I felt. And I just kept talking and talking and talking about it because I didn't want anyone to feel like they were alone in it. And I felt like I think it was honestly just therapy for me just to speak about everything that was happening. It was almost like if I talk about it, then I'll get better faster, right? It's like that was, if we just talk this out, I'll get better. But yeah, just don't if you're feeling not like yourself and you're feeling um like your mood is impacting how you show up every day, don't be afraid. Like, go and talk about it with someone. I just actually had a hormone client that I was like, you know what, you need to get off the phone with me and you need to go call your doctor. And because I think you need antidepressants.
Yeah.
And, that's usually not my first line of defense. Usually
Mhm.
it's more of like, let's look at your nutrition and like but it was significant enough that I was like, no, you need, and then once you do that, then you can come in and we'll chat things out. So,
I think it was very brave of you, to feel so comfortable talking about how you're
mhm,
feeling, because many women will internalize that and feel shame in talking about their mood, which was a big driver
yeah,
for doing podcasts and having these conversations, that we tend to have them either with ourselves or one or two trusted friends, and um, that you got the support and the help that you needed, and you are now thriving in motherhood and all the different things that you do, and the support that you are giving to your friend who's just entering her journey is priceless, really. So
thank you. Well, and I don't know why, you know, I don't know. Like, I mean, I think that just like my background, I worked in psychiatry for a while prior to becoming a mom too. And I don't know, but I don't know. I get that women or want to keep it internalized and there's so much shame, but at the end of the day, like you have to understand like that's not serving you and you're not going to get anywhere internalizing it and feeling alone. And you're going
yeah.
to suffer and it's going to last longer most likely. So it's like if anything that you do for yourself is have the conversations, talk it out, talk to
Hmm.
anybody who'll listen, get the help that you need. Again, for me, it was like, I'm going to do all the things. And some
Hmm.
people don't have capacity for that. I just think that I was one of those people that I knew something was wrong and I knew I needed to fix it. I needed to fix it as soon as humanly possible because I needed to carry on as a mom. So,
Yeah.
and don't be so hard on yourself either as new moms. Like, just,
Roll with
try not
it.
to. Or
Yeah,
as women, we need to
I
stop
know.
being so hard on ourselves. We're
Hmm.
doing amazing jobs and we're just human and life is short. So you just have to enjoy it as much as you humanly possibly can. So, Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah. We covered a lot today. Difficulties conceiving, difficulties with breastfeeding, grief, loss of a parent, loss of yourself, postpartum mood, the different supports that you had. I think this is something that's going to help quite a lot of people, if not even just to get them to open up. So before we finish, I tend to ask people to leave me with a quote or a mantra. So I'll share yours. You wrote, "I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Let's care less," which I think speaks to the importance of not putting too much pressures on ourselves. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. And for those of
You're
you
welcome.
listening, if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with someone who might benefit from the episode, or you can always get in touch at info@getyourpinkbackproject.com. Take care. Bye now. The information shared on the Get Your Pink Back Project podcast is for educational and general informational purposes only. Although I am a medical doctor, I am not providing medical, psychological, or professional advice specific to you or any individual. This podcast does not establish a physician-patient relationship, and the content should not be used as a substitute for personalized medical care, mental health support, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your own physician, mental health professional, or qualified healthcare provider with any questions you have regarding your health or well-being. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to share it with another woman who might need it. And if you feel called, leave a rating or review. It helps grow this community. Remember, you are not lost, you are becoming. I'll see you next time on the Get Your Pink Back Project podcast.